So Chip Kelly left UCLA for Ohio State over the weekend. And there were so many people who were just flabbergasted by that move that couldn't understand on social media, whether it was social media, podcast, YouTube, ESPN. So many people continued to say like they didn't understand that move. And my initial thought is like, do you seriously? You really can't understand why? And basically it was centered on a Power 5 coach leaving as the head coach to be a coordinator at another school inside the conference. And on the surface, yes, that does not make a boatload of sense. But then when you start to put some context on it, it makes all the sense in the world. Everybody in college football, for the most part, I think, has success on the mind. They want to reach the pinnacle. Everybody has the same goals. Very rarely are you going to find a college football coach who's like, I just want to make a decent living. And if I get to if I stay in FCS for the rest of my life, okay. Now, some guys get there eventually, but the reason you're in the business is to reach the pinnacle, be the top dog. And everybody thinks that they can be that at some point. Very rarely are you going to find somebody who's like, yeah, I couldn't be the head coach at Alabama. I'm just not built for that. Like everybody, and there are a lot of coaches that will say, I don't want to be a head coach, but they want to be a coordinator. They want to be a position coach at one of the best programs in America. They want to be one of the highest paid assistants. It's natural and logical. But the idea that people were flabbergasted, dumbfounded by Chip Kelly, I just never got. Because there's really just like, close your eyes and ask yourself this one question. Do you envision UCLA being uber successful in the Big Ten over the course of the next 5 to 10 years? I don't think you answer that question with, yeah, I do. And I don't even know what you define success as. UCLA in the Big Ten, in the newly revamped Big Ten without divisions, is your ceiling 10-2? Probably. Is 8-4 regularly the most likely scenario? Probably. Now, I'm not saying UCLA can't ever win the Big Ten championship. Like you're going to have and there are teams inside the conference right now that you can point to and say like, this is a program that can win the Big Ten once every 4 or 5 years. I think UCLA can be in that group that they can win the conference once every 4 or 5 years. Winning the conference once every 4 or 5 years isn't going to be enough to, like, you have to strike while the iron's hot. And for Chip Kelly, who has been pretty publicly on a on again, like it's been a junior high dating relationship between UCLA and Chip Kelly. Like when he's into it, it's great. Then sometimes they're not into it. Sometimes he's not into it. Sometimes it's on again, off again. Is he going to get fired? Is he going to get an extension? Is he going to get an extension? Is he going to get fired? It's been pretty public that like that's been where things are at between those two sides. But do you envision UCLA on top of the Big Ten anytime soon? No, and neither does Chip Kelly. And when you're in the arena and you've got the full lay of the land of what it looks like and what success looks like, it's a pretty easy decision to bail. Now, the second question I'll ask you, do you like working with people that you like working with? Do you like working with people you're familiar with? Most people answer yes to that question. You like to work at your job with the people you like. You like to work at your job with people you're familiar with, that you know, that you have experience with, history with. Chip Kelly's just like you. He knows Ryan Day, coached Ryan Day, coached with Justin Fry, Ohio State's offensive line coach. It's not a head scratcher when you really sit down and think about like, okay, UCLA's athletic department deficit is like $36 million a year. Okay. Is that going to hinder us in being competitive? Probably. Are we set up to compete in the Big Ten for long-term success? Probably not. Okay. Well, that's not a great start. Then also I can leave my Power 5 job, go become an offensive coordinator with a head coach that I am incredibly familiar with. Been familiar with this guy since the 1990s. Familiar with their offensive line coach, who coached with me previously. And frankly, Ohio State is more set up and built for success, especially in 2024, than UCLA is going to be in the next 4 or 5 years. If he can take a 1-year coordinator job and parlay that into a different, better, higher level Power 5 job than he could if he went 9-3 at UCLA this year. And 9-3 at UCLA this year would be a really good year for them. Fantastic year. But you know what? You go 14-0, you go 13-0, win the Big Ten, make the college football playoff. Whatever happens then, even, it's a much easier path for a big-time job, so to speak, a quote-unquote big-time job. The path for Chip Kelly to get back on top of the college football mountaintop didn't exist at UCLA. It exists at Ohio State. And it's probably a pretty easy path at Ohio State. So I don't think it's a head scratcher at all to question, why would he do this? You're not built for success at UCLA. And when the one thing you're looking for in your career is being equipped for success, being put in a situation to be successful, to win, and you don't have that, you're spinning your tires, wasting your time. And Chip Kelly doesn't have a whole lot of time left in the college football world. And even if he wants to be back in the NFL, you know what? Going to Ohio State helps that. Generally, for the most part, nobody's going to hire a coach from college in the NFL that just led their program to a 9-3 season. You're not going to win a press conference. You're not going to impress a fan base. It's not going to be viewed as a slam dunk hire that you brought Chip Kelly from UCLA to the Dallas Cowboys after he went 9-3. Nobody's going to view that as like, holy cow, that's a great choice. But you know what? You win a Big Ten, go 14-0 as the offensive coordinator. You might get an offensive coordinator job in the NFL, and then guess what? You're going to be right back where you want to be. And if you're in the NFL, you can always drop right back down to college whenever you want because you're Chip Kelly. So this idea that people just couldn't wrap their heads around the idea of, oh my gosh, a Power 5 coach is leaving to become a Power 5 offensive coordinator. Why would he take that step down? I think it's a pretty simple explanation when you sit down and think about it for really any period of time. I don't think it's that head scratching at all. And whether we see more of it play out in the future like that, I don't know. But we've talked about before that the gap between the Power 5 and the Group of 5 is expanding. I wonder if you start to see a gap growing between the haves and the have-nots of the Power 5. Because I would guarantee you UCLA doesn't love the idea that they are a stepping stone job to become a coordinator at somewhere else. And I think there are some very clear candidates throughout Power 4 football now of places that could you see a person employed at Wake Forest, Purdue, Mississippi State, Baylor, leave to become a coordinator at a bigger school? Yeah, it could. I think so. But I wonder if that gap continues to widen between the haves and the have-nots in the Power 5, or if this is just a special set of circumstances where it just worked out, the stars aligned, and Chip Kelly thought the yellow brick road, the road to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, is a hell of a lot wider and easier to navigate at Ohio State than it is at UCLA. I think that'll be interesting to watch, but I think I lean towards that just the stars aligned. It was too good to pass up. And that's where we are. We'll talk later in the week about what UCLA is going to do. Does that start another domino of the coaching carousel? We'll find out. But we'll chat about it all this week here on the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content that we're pumping out here on Saturday Glory. If you are listening on a podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. Be back at it tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel here on the Daily Huddle with Saturday Glory.